Welcome to the Philippine Stories Deep Dive channel. During every election in the Philippines, there's this incredible energy.
Yeah,
It's almost palpable, right? You've got these fiery debates.
absolutely.
The rallies are just packed with people.
Packed.
And then, of course, you can't forget those opinion polls. They're everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Everywhere you look.
And it feels like everyone's just glued to the latest results, trying to decipher who's ahead.
Right, who's going to win?
Exactly. But, it makes you wonder, are these polls really painting the full picture?
That's the question, isn't it?
Or are we kind of getting caught up in this popularity contest that might not actually reflect what voters truly care about?
It's a good point. It's so easy to get swept away by, who's up and who's down in the polls.
Yeah,
But we have to remember that they are just, snapshots in time.
right.
They're based on a small sample of the population, and they don't always capture the nuances and complexities of people's views.
So you're saying we shouldn't just take these polls as, like, the absolute truth?
Exactly. We have to be critical, right? I mean, there are inherent biases and potential inaccuracies that are kind of built into the polling process.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, for example, sampling bias, right? That can really skew the results.
Oh, sampling bias. Okay.
Yeah, imagine a pollster only surveyed people, let's say, in urban areas.
Okay.
Well, that wouldn't accurately represent the views of the entire country, right?
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like trying to judge an entire pot of adobo, but you've only tasted one bite.
I like that.
You might miss out on all those subtle flavors and nuances that make the dish what it is.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you've got the issue of loaded questions.
Loaded questions. What do you mean?
Those questions that are phrased in a way that might lead people to a certain answer?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, even just a slight change in wording can actually influence how people respond.
So it's not just about who you ask, but how you ask them.
Exactly. It's about the wording, the tone, everything.
Wow, okay. So the wording can make a big difference. And then you've got, like, the human factor, too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The interviewer themselves. Right.
Right.
Their tone of voice, even their body language, could unintentionally influence a participant's response.
It's true.
And then think about those who don't respond to surveys at all, right? Are they systematically different from those who do?
Right. You never know.
All of these factors can impact the accuracy of those results.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but some of the pieces are missing.
Yeah,
You might get a general idea, but you're not going to see the complete picture.
precisely. And those missing pieces, they can make a huge difference when we're talking about something as important as elections.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've established that polls aren't perfect, but they can still influence how people vote, right?
Sure, without a doubt.
Like, take the Magic 12 phenomenon in Philippine senatorial elections.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic example of
Yeah.
how polls can become, self-fulfilling prophecies. The candidates who keep showing up in, the top 12 of those pre-election surveys, they often get a popularity boost
I can see that.
simply because they are perceived as frontrunners.
Oh, interesting.
It's almost as if voters think, well, everyone else seems to be supporting them, so maybe I should too.
It's like a bandwagon effect, almost.
Precisely. And there's actually research that supports this.
Really?
Yeah, Dr. Mike Farjam, a political scientist,
Yeah.
found that exposure to those pre-election polls, it can significantly influence voting decisions.
Wow.
Especially when it comes to those less polarizing issues,
Yeah.
People are looking for cues on who to vote for.
Right.
And seeing someone consistently at the top of those polls, it can subconsciously sway their decision.
It's like they're looking for guidance, in a way.
In a way, yeah.
Wow, that's wild. It makes you wonder if people are voting based on their own beliefs, or if they're just letting the polls tell them what to think.
That's the big question, right? Are we truly evaluating candidates and their platforms for ourselves?
Yeah.
Or are we letting this, perceived popularity dictate our choices?
That's a good point. And then you throw social media into the mix, and it gets even more complicated, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a whole other beast.
I mean, everyone's sharing those informal polls, the ones that pop up on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, all over the place.
But who knows how reliable they are?
Exactly right. You've got these unscientific polls,
Right.
often lacking any transparency or rigor.
Right.
They can be incredibly misleading.
Yeah.
And in the wrong hands, they can be used to spread disinformation.
Oh, absolutely.
And manipulate public opinion. And we've all seen how quickly false information can go viral online.
It's like a wildfire, right?
Exactly. It's a real threat to having fair elections.
It's like someone's tampered with the ingredients in our adobo.
Oh, I like that analogy.
You think you're getting the real deal, but it's been altered without you even knowing it.
That's a perfect way to put it. We need to be really discerning about the information we consume, especially during those election periods.
Absolutely. So what are some things we can do to make sure we're not being swayed by these misleading polls and misinformation?
Well, luckily, the Commission on Elections, yes, COMLEC,
Yeah.
they've stepped in to try and regulate, the publication of survey results.
Okay, so they're taking action.
Yeah, they're cracking down on those who are, spreading those fake results.
Good.
And pushing for more transparency in polling practices.
That's a step in the right direction for sure.
It is. But, it's not just about what COMLEC does, right? It's about what we do as individuals, too.
What do you mean?
We need to be critical thinkers, right?
Oh, okay.
We can't just passively accept everything that we see.
Right.
We have to dig deeper, question the source,
Okay.
look for evidence to support those claims.
That makes sense.
And most importantly, think about what matters most to you when choosing a candidate, right? What are your values? What are your priorities?
So it's about going beyond the headlines, forming our own opinions based on, solid information.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to dive deeper into in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, great. I'm looking forward to it.
Welcome back to our deep dive. We've been talking about how these election surveys can be misleading and all, but you know what? It's not just about the polls themselves.
Right.
It's about this whole ecosystem of misinformation that can really take hold.
Especially during elections, right?
Especially during elections, yeah. It's like a wildfire, just ripping through the internet.
Okay, wow. A wildfire. That sounds kind of intense.
It is. And social media plays a huge role in this, Think about how quickly things go viral on platforms like, let's say, Facebook or TikTok.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, one misleading post, one doctored image, it can reach millions of people in just a few hours.
It's scary how fast it spreads.
It is. And these platforms, they're designed to keep us scrolling, right?
Right.
And they often end up prioritizing content that triggers those strong emotions.
Oh, so like those clickbait headlines.
Exactly. This leaked video will expose everything.
Oh, yeah.
They're designed to grab our attention, and unfortunately, that's where misinformation thrives.
So it plays on our emotions.
Exactly. It preys on those emotions.
Gotcha.
Making us more likely to share without even, stopping to think if it's true or not.
So we just react?
We react, we share, and then it spreads like wildfire. And, it's not just the algorithms, right?
Right.
It's also about the people we connect with online, We tend to follow those who share our views.
Oh, so like our friends and family who have the same opinions.
Exactly. And that leads to these echo chambers,
Echo chambers, what are those?
So imagine you're in a room and everyone's just repeating the same ideas back and forth.
Oh, okay, I see.
You rarely hear any opposing viewpoints. That's an echo chamber.
Gotcha.
And social media algorithms, they actually contribute to this.
Right.
They show us content from people and sources we already agree with.
It's like they're reinforcing our biases, in a way.
Exactly. And this can be dangerous because it creates this false sense of consensus.
Oh, so you start to think everyone agrees with you.
Yeah. You're like, well, everyone I know thinks this way, so it must be true.
Right.
But you're not getting that full picture.
You're not seeing the other side.
Exactly. And that makes it harder to question information or even consider different perspectives.
It's like cooking adobo, but with only one ingredient. You're missing out on that richness and depth that comes from using a blend of flavors,
Exactly. To make those informed decisions, we need those diverse perspectives.
Right.
We need to break out of these echo chambers.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we break out of the echo chamber?
Well, first and foremost, be skeptical, right? Don't just blindly accept everything you see.
Right.
Always ask yourself, who's sharing this information? What's their motivation?
So it's like, be a detective almost.
Exactly. Investigate the source. Look for any red flags. And don't forget to fact check.
Oh, fact-checking. That's important.
Yeah. There are great resources available online. Those fact-checking websites, reputable news organizations.
Right.
And remember that old saying, if something sounds too good to be true...
It probably is.
It probably is.
Yeah.
Another thing, pay attention to the language.
Okay.
The way things are phrased. Misinformation, it loves those emotionally charged words,
Oh, to get a reaction.
Exactly. It's designed to provoke a reaction. So if something's making you really angry or really scared, Take a step back.
Don't just react.
Try to analyze the information a little more objectively.
It's like tasting the adobo before you add more salt.
Oh, I like that.
Sometimes a little restraint goes a long way.
Exactly. And even if something comes from a source you usually trust, double check.
Okay.
We all make mistakes, right?
Right.
Even those reliable sources can get things wrong sometimes.
So it's about being vigilant, really.
All the time.
Not just during elections, but all the time.
Exactly.
And if you see someone sharing misinformation, what do you do?
Speak up, but do it respectfully, Point them to credible sources.
So have those tough conversations.
But in a way that promotes understanding.
Right, not division.
Exactly. Remember, we're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
Misinformation affects everyone, and it's going to take all of us to combat it. We need to cultivate this culture of critical thinking,
And responsible information sharing?
Exactly. It's not just about being informed.
It's about being responsible.
It's about being a responsible citizen online.
That's a good point.
And in the next part, we're going to explore how traditional media fits into all of this.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. I'm definitely interested to hear about that. Welcome back. So we've been talking about polls, misinformation, all that.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about something a bit more traditional.
Okay.
Traditional media, right?
Yeah.
Newspapers, TV news, radio, all that.
Right.
It's interesting, though, because even with social media being so big, these traditional outlets,
They still have a lot of power, yeah.
they really do. It's like they set the agenda for what everyone's talking about.
They shape the conversation, yeah. They're the ones deciding what's important.
It's true. I mean, when I want to know what's going on in the Philippines,
Yeah.
I still turn to those familiar news sources,
Get it, it's familiar.
It is, but like you said, they do have a big influence.
Oh, they do. They're like filters, trying to make sense of all the information out there.
Okay, filters, that's a good way to put it.
They choose what to show us, what they think we need to know.
But no filter is perfect, right?
Of course not. Traditional media, it's got its own biases and limitations.
That's true. So how do we, as people who watch the news and read the papers,
Yeah.
how do we deal with those biases?
Yeah.
We can't just believe everything we see.
Exactly. And that's where media literacy comes in.
Media literacy, okay.
It's all about being aware of those biases, questioning the information and looking for different perspectives.
So not just relying on one source.
Exactly. Don't just read one newspaper. Watch different channels, compare how they're covering the same story.
It's like getting a second opinion, but for the news.
Exactly. You want that well-rounded view, not just one angle.
Makes sense. And we should question what we see, too, right?
Absolutely. Ask yourself who's telling this story, what's their background, what are they not saying?
We have to be active, not just passive.
Exactly. Think critically about what's being presented to you.
It's like we're part of the process.
We are. And don't forget, traditional media, they have this important role in holding people accountable.
Oh, right, like the government.
Exactly. Investigative journalism, those deep dives.
Yeah.
They can expose corruption, bring those hidden issues to light.
That's true. I always find those reports fascinating.
They are, and they can make a real difference.
It reminds me why it's important to support good journalism,
Absolutely. But even the best journalists, they need our help.
What do you mean?
We have a responsibility to stay informed,
Right.
to engage, to question, to hold our leaders accountable.
But it's a two-way street.
It is. Media needs to give us the facts, and we need to be critical of those facts.
And use those facts to make good decisions, right?
Exactly. And, our voices matter more than ever now.
Because of social media.
Yeah, we can share information.
Amplify those important voices.
Exactly. But of course, with that power comes responsibility, right?
We have to be careful what we share.
Exactly. Double check, be respectful of different views, all of that.
So it's about being informed, but also being responsible.
Well said. It's about being good citizens online and offline.
It all ties together, doesn't it?
It does. Informed, engaged, holding people accountable.
That's what it's all about. That's a great point to end on.
Yeah.
We covered a lot today, from those tricky polls to misinformation to the role of media.
A lot to think about.
As we head into this election, let's all remember to be critical, to be responsible, and to really participate.
It's our democracy, right?
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.